The international airport was alive with movement and energy. Travelers from every corner of the world rushed through the terminals, dragging their suitcases behind them, eyes fixed on their phones, anxiously checking flight times. Some hurried to catch their flights, while others stood in long lines, chatting, waiting for their turn at security. It seemed like just another ordinary day, just another routine flow of passengers moving in and out. But appearances can be deceiving. Standing tall near the customs checkpoint was Officer Jake Thompson. His sharp, watchful eyes scanned the endless stream of people, his mind trained to spot anything unusual, anything that didn't quite fit. Beside him, his trusted K9 partner, Max, a highly skilled Belgian Malinois, sat at full attention. For 5 years, Max had been an invaluable part of the team, uncovering everything from hidden weapons to illegal drugs. But today was going to be different. Today, Max was about to expose something that would send a chill down everyone's spine. Passengers moved past the checkpoint one by one, their conversations blending into the general airport noise. Then, all of a sudden, Max froze. His ears shot up, his nose twitched rapidly, and then he barked. Once. Twice. And then again, louder, stronger, more urgent. Jake immediately followed Max's gaze, his body tensing as he spotted the target. A middle-aged man, wearing a dark gray hoodie, carrying a black duffel bag, was making his way toward customs. On the surface, he looked completely ordinary. Nothing about him screamed suspicious. But Max's instincts were razor-sharp. He had never been wrong before. "Excuse me, sir," Jake called out, stepping forward with authority. The man's body stiffened for a fraction of a second. Then, as if realizing he had no choice but to respond, he forced a nervous smile. Is there a problem, officer?" Max barked again, this time even louder. His stance was rigid, his tail completely stiff. Every fiber of his being screamed that something was off. "Please place your bag on the table for inspection," Jake instructed, his tone calm but firm. His eyes never left the man's face, carefully reading every twitch, every hesitation. The man hesitated, just for a moment. His fingers tightened around the handle of the bag. Jake's instincts kicked in. "Sir." Now. The tension in the air was thick. Then, with a reluctant sigh, the man finally placed the bag onto the inspection table. His hands shook slightly as he reached for the zipper. He slowly pulled it open. The second the zipper slid down, Max lunged forward, barking wildly. Jake's heart pounded as he peered inside. And then he froze. Inside the duffel bag, wrapped in a thin, worn-out blanket, was a tiny baby, no older than a few weeks. His tiny face was pale, his fragile chest rising and falling in shallow, weak breaths. A collective gasp rippled through the checkpoint. The security team rushed over, eyes wide in shock. Passengers nearby stopped in their tracks, staring in horror. "What the?" Jake muttered, already reaching into the bag, carefully lifting the baby out. The infant let out a weak, faint whimper, barely strong enough to cry. The man, now pale, his hands trembling, stammered, I wasn't trying to hurt him. I swear." Jake wasted no time. He quickly handed the baby over to an airport medic who had sprinted to the scene. Then, turning back to the man, he fixed him with a hard, piercing stare. "Explain. Now." Tears welled up in the man's eyes. His voice cracked. I was trying to save him." Jake narrowed his eyes. "Save him? From what?" The man swallowed hard, his chest rising in a deep, shaky breath. And then, he said the words that sent a shiver through the room. From his fate. They were going to sell him. Silence. The room seemed to freeze in place as everyone processed what had just been revealed. The man, now identified as Daniel Carter, wasn't just any traveler. He was a journalist, and he had been investigating a dark, horrifying human trafficking ring for months. He had uncovered an entire operation, one that smuggled newborn babies out of the country, like cargo. And this baby, the one he had secretly named Noah in his mind, he was supposed to be one of them. "I found him in a back room of a clinic," Daniel said, his voice shaking. wrapped in nothing but rags. They were planning to smuggle him out of the country tonight. I couldn't just leave him there. I had to do something. Jake clenched his jaw. His mind was racing. If Daniel was telling the truth, then this wasn't just about one abandoned baby. This was about an entire criminal network operating in the shadows. Then, Max barked again. He sniffed the duffel bag, his nose pushing against a small, hidden pocket. Jake leaned in and found something tucked inside, a tiny USB drive. "What's this?" Jake asked, holding it up. Daniel took a deep breath. The proof. Everything. Names, locations, transaction records. I was going to get it to the authorities, but I didn't expect to get caught first. Jake exhaled sharply. This wasn't just a suspicious passenger. This was a man who had risked everything, his freedom, his safety, to rescue an innocent child. Now, it was time to finish what he had started. The race against time. As Noah was rushed to the hospital for immediate care, Jake contacted his superiors. Within hours, a full-blown task force was mobilized. The USB drive led them straight to the operations headquarters, a hidden facility on the outskirts of the city. And what they found there made everyone's stomachs turn. Inside, several newborns were crammed into tiny spaces, barely clothed, barely cared for. Some already had fake documents attached to them, ready to be erased from existence and sold into the black market. The rescue mission was swift. The criminals? Arrested. The babies? Finally safe. Standing in the middle of the chaos, Jake watched as officers carried the infants out of the facility, their cries filling the air. His heart swelled with emotion. If Max hadn't barked, if Daniel hadn't taken the risk,
who knows what would have happened?
A new beginning. Days later, Jake visited the hospital. Little Noah was stronger now, his tiny fingers curling around Jake's as Max sat beside him, letting out a soft whimper and licking the baby's hand. A nurse smiled at Jake. "You know, there's already a waiting list of families eager to adopt him. He's already so loved." Jake smiled.
Good.
He deserves a real home. As he walked out of the hospital with Max by his side, he glanced up at the sky. The world was still dark in so many ways, but today they had brought a little more light into it. And it had all started with a customs dog who refused to stop barking. Moral of the story? Courage comes in many forms. Sometimes, it's a man risking it all to save an innocent life. And sometimes, it's a dog trusting his instincts. Never ignore the voice inside you that tells you to do what's right. Because sometimes that voice, it's the only thing standing between justice and darkness.